You are watching NCN.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Budget 2023 Review. With me in studio is Minister of Natural Resources, Vickram Bharrat. Hello, Minister, and welcome.
Thank you.
And how are you?
I'm happy to be here this afternoon with you to share some insights into Budget 2023.
Well, thank you for being here. I know you're very busy preparing for the budget debates that will commence on Monday.
Yes. That's 2 weeks in Parliament, 1 week debate, 1 week committee of supply, the examination of the estimates. And that's 2 weeks every day, whole day.
Very long days and nights
Yes,
ahead of
definitely.
you. Well, once again, thank you for being here. What I'd like to know from you, Minister, is there's some $2.2 billion allocated to the Ministry of Natural Resources in this year's budget. Could you explain to us and state how this money will be spent and for what purposes?
All right. Let me say that Budget 2023 is the largest budget in the history of our country. It definitely addresses the issues that are being faced by our people today. And of course, it lays a foundation for what is to come in the future. So that is why I will describe the budget as a very comprehensive, well-crafted budget 2023. And if we look at it, if I may quickly, before I actually go into my sector, you would see it addresses almost every issue. We've always said that we're going to continue to provide incentives for the non-oil sector, which is very important for us because the non-oil sectors are more labor intensive. It creates or it employs a large amount of Guyanese. And the oil and gas sector is more capital intensive, more technologically driven. So it is important as a government that we continue to provide incentives and to continue to grow the non-oil economy. And we would have seen in 2022 tremendous growth rate. I say tremendous in the context of what is happening around the world presently. Our growth rate in Guyana was 62.5%, the highest in the world, fastest growing economy in the world. And amazingly, 11.5% growth in a non-oil economy. That is an amazing achievement considering what is happening around with COVID and the war and cost of living globally. It is amazing for such a small country as ours that is producing oil that we don't become too heavily dependent on oil revenue alone. And that growth in the non-oil sector speaks to our commitment to growing the traditional sectors like mining, like forestry, like agriculture, like ecotourism, manufacturing, construction. Those are the sectors that we're focusing a lot on because it creates employment for our people. So 11.7% growth rate in the non-oil sector is quite commendable. And I would have seen, particularly in my sectors, tremendous growth in almost every single commodity. We had an increase. Forestry, for example, a growth rate of 13.4%. Considering where forestry was when we took over in 2020, forestry was bankrupt. And I can't help keep saying this, but it's a fact. Forestry was bankrupt. When I say bankrupt, they weren't able to pay staff. When we took over in August, staff were owed for June and July salaries. NIS was owed, utility bills were owed, union dues, insurance. It was a nightmare.
That's when you took over.
That's when
where are we now?
That's when I took over forestry.
So where are we now?
Now we're experiencing a growth rate of 13.4% in 2022, an increase in production of over 50,000 cubic from 2021 to 2022. So we would have seen an increase in production, an increase in exportation, an increase in the number of persons, especially small concessionaires, going back into operation. Most of them were forced out or couldn't sustain themselves during the 5 years under the APNU AFC. So I'm particularly pleased to see the Guyana forestry sector coming back to where it used to be. We have managed to pay off our NIS, our utilities, staff are being paid on time now. Of course, with the intervention of President Ali, over $400 million was given to or used to subsidize the operation and to help to offset some of the expenses at the Guyana Forestry Commission, so that today we can pay staff on time, we can pay all our utility bills. However, there's a long way more that we need to go, and you would realize that the recent contract with Barbados and with St. Vincent, that is to build the homes, that would be a big boost for the forestry sector, because what we are preparing the forestry stakeholders for is to move towards value added. Because that is where the real opportunities are. That is the real opportunity to increase their earnings. And in the context of keeping our deforestation rate low, mitigating climate change, we want to ensure that we preserve our forests, while at the same time we have a sustainable, viable forestry sector. So the only way we're going to truly achieve that is to ensure that we move towards value added. For too long, we've been exporting logs. For too long. It is about time we start exporting lumber, we start exporting wood products, and not just cut a tree and then export it. That, in doing that, it creates a lot of opportunities for our people. So included in ministry's budget is $300 million for a special pilot project, reclamation reforestation project. Because what we intend to do is to look at some of the minute areas, especially in Region 1, Region 8. We're going to target Region 1, 8, and 10, and to do some amount of reclamation of the land and reforestation. We look at the fast-growing species, or maybe we look at bamboo, because there's so much economic benefits with regards to bamboo.
There's a high demand for that.
And there's a high demand for that too internationally. We are importing, for example, bamboo flooring from China, whereas we can actually do these things right here in Guyana. So part of that is for that pilot project or allocation. Of course, part of it will go towards oil and gas. As you're aware, we are presently in the stage of reviewing the fifth development, the Waru development. We're looking at the field development plan, and hopefully at some point in time, once everything is in line and once everything is okay, we'll move towards issuing a production license for the fifth development in the Stabber block. Because we have Liza 1, Liza 2, and then we'll have Prosperity, which is the Payara production area, coming on stream in this year. And then we have Yellowtail, which was issued last year, and then Waru being the fifth developmental project. So some amount of the allocation will go towards ensuring that the oil, and we continue to build out the framework for the oil and gas sectors. You're aware we have the new secretariat now, the local content secretariat, managing that aspect of it. So some allocation will go towards strengthening that secretariat, because we will have to do a lot more monitoring in 2023. We will also have to look at the Local Content Act by itself, especially Schedule 1, that speaks to the 40 services that Guyanese can actually benefit from, to do an assessment whether we have more in country capacity now, and to look at maybe increasing those services, or if possible increasing those targets for each service. For example, medical services, we had 25%. Must go towards local businesses. We can reassess our position in 2023 to determine whether we have built capacity, whether we're in a better position now to offer more, maybe 50%. So that all that will take place in 2023. We are also reviewing, and we made a promise. We made a promise when we campaigned that we will review the production sharing agreement, that any future production sharing agreement signed by our government will carry a different fiscal terms. and improve fiscal terms from the Stabrook PSA. We all know what happened in the Stabrook PSA, the 2% royalty, no tax being paid by the oil companies. We've been through that several times over and over. It was signed in June of 2016 by the then Minister of Natural Resources, Minister Trotman. And you know what is strange today, that the very people who signed the contract are calling for contract renegotiation now. So we made the pledge that, or we made the commitment that we are going to improve on future PSA, production sharing agreements. So right now we have work ongoing on that to build an internationally modeled PSA, and the Vice President would have announced the new fiscal terms that all PSA will have to be will follow. For example, the 10% royalty instead of 2%, and oil companies would have to pay 10% tax to the country, to GRA, 50-50 share, the 65% cost recovery. Those are the new fiscal terms that will go into every new PSA signed by any oil company, whether it's Exxon operating in the Kanji block or the Kaichor block, whether it's CGX in the Quarantine block, whether it's Repsol in the Kunuku block. When we move to a stage where they start producing, those are the fiscal terms. Also, our bid rounds for the 14 oil blocks, that is public right now, that will close off in April. We are looking to allocate those 14 blocks once we have favorable proposals by the mid-2023. And that will bring increase exploration activities offshore Guyana. And increased exploration activities offshore Guyana speaks to increased opportunities for Guyanese and Guyanese businesses, whether it's directly or indirectly, whether it's through employment or whether it's through the provision of goods and services. And that was the whole idea behind the local content legislation, to ensure that Guyanese benefit directly from the oil and gas sector, either through employment, and we are moving ahead with our plans to establish the Guyana Technical Training College in Port Moran, Berbice, Region 6. That is where the former Gaisuku Training School used to be, and to incorporate that training school into what we will call the Guyana Technical Training College. One campus dealing specifically with oil and gas, one dealing with hospitality, services, and of course the training school that is there right now. So we are moving to ensure that we train our people too, so that they can be employed with the oil and gas companies. So that project is moving ahead. And well, you know, the big project is the gas energy project. And
yes,
I'm sure
$43.4 billion this year is going towards that.
Yes, $43.4 billion, as you said. Now, the gas to energy project. And I like to say that the gas to energy project is the single most transformational project that we will ever witness in this country. The gas to energy project. Why I say that? Our major problem in this country has always been power generation. The cost of power generation, in this hemisphere, we are probably one of the most expensive in terms of cost of power generation. We are generating electricity at probably 30 US cents per kilowatt, when other countries around us, even some of our neighbors, are generating electricity at less than 10 US cents per kilowatt. Now, if you're an investor, especially in the manufacturing sector, wanting to come to invest in a country, a tropical country close by here, and when you look at Guyana, 30 US cents per kilowatt, and you look at a neighboring country, 10 US cents per kilowatt, obviously you're going where there's cheap power. It's obvious and it's
that's
natural.
preventing our local businesses.
And our manufacturing sector and our value-added products. That's been hampering us for years, decades. So power has always been an issue with us. The cost, that's one. The reliability. I grew up in Berbice. I grew up in the days of blackout. And I went to Canada one time and I was speaking about it, and I said blackout, and people started looking at me as if people actually fainted and fell on the ground because they don't quite understand the term that we use here until I mentioned power outage. So I grew up in Berbice with blackouts, studying with not even gas lamp, with kerosene lamp, or we used to call it flambeau back in the days. Right? That's when you just get a drink bottle, you put a wick inside and you light it up. So a lot of Guyanese been through that. We have all, and even now we're still having some issues because we're having the aging engines and we have to upgrade the transmission distribution system. So even now we're still experiencing some amount of that. So this project will change that. You know, Guyanese like to say when they go to America, they don't get blackout, or when they go to other. Well, we will change that in Guyana. People will say that about Guyana after this project start up in 2024, and in 2024. That blackout will be a thing of the past. Power outage will be a thing of the past. So it's cost, it's reliability, and importantly too, in the whole context of climate change and cutting emission, even though Guyana is a carbon negative country. And I say that proudly because there are very few countries in the world that can say that they're carbon negative. Believe me, just a few. There are basically just two standing forests in the world, major standing forests in the world. That is the Congo Basin, and we have some countries there that are carbon negative, like Gabon and others. And then us in the Amazon Basin, with us in Trinidad and so. So that's the only two major standing forests in the world. So we must speak with it proudly and with pride that we are helping to save the world. So we, even though we are carbon negative, we are still working towards cutting our emission even further. And this gas energy project will cut our emission for power generation by 70%. Because right now we are using HFO diesel to generate electricity. We will stop that, we'll use gas, because gas is seen more as a transitional fuel, transitioning away from the heavy fuel to eventually renewable. So that will cut our emissions. So it's cost, it's reliability, it's cutting emission. Imagine every single Guyanese, when you receive your light bill or electricity bill in 2025, you'll be paying almost half of what you're paying now. That is automatically a big savings for every single family.
I'm looking forward to that.
I am too. But importantly, in a national basis, it will speak towards a reduce in cost of living, a significant reduction in cost of living, because almost everything revolves around power and power generation. So we will see a significant reduction in cost of living, and naturally we will see an increase in standard of living, and that is what we want. We want our people to enjoy a better life too, like in the first world countries. You know, so this one project will do all of this. Reduce the cost of living, increase the standard of living. Because at some point in time, we will have people in Guyana saying, you know what, electricity is cheap in Guyana now, so I can throw away my fan and I can put an AC unit in my room. Or I can throw away my kerosene stove or my gas stove and buy electric stove. We will have that. Naturally, you will have that. And that is why we're moving to ensure that we have enough power there. Because some people say, oh, why are you doing a 300 megawatts power when our use right now is only half of that at peak? But once standard of living improve, then you'll find that demand will increase too for power. Also, with the number of hotels that are being built right now in Guyana, we have, 6, 7 new hotels, and we'll probably have more. We have condominiums, we have apartment buildings. We give out over 20,000 house lots already. Those people will build their houses, they will require power generation. We're looking to expand our manufacturing industrial sector. That's the whole idea behind this. So 300 megawatts, believe me, will be used, and that is why we already are planning ahead. If you listen to President Ali, and if you look at the Low Carbon Development Strategy 2030, it speaks to hydropower. The Milo Falls hydropower is still on the card. President Ali said that himself. It's still on the card. We will retender that at some point. Then solar. Right now we are working towards generating at least 33 megawatts of solar power, clean power, renewable power. And then at some point, again, it's stated in Low Carbon Development Strategy 2030 that later we will start looking at wind power to add to that. So we're looking with gas and with renewable energy close to maybe 500 megawatts of power that will be needed as we move towards this new Guyana that we're building, this modern Guyana that we're building. So the gas energy project is cost of electricity will go down, reliable electricity supply, cleaner energy, lower the cost of living, improve the standard of living, and importantly now manufacturing. We, many times I go to different countries and the foresting people, because they're learning about Guyana now, a lot of people, because of oil and gas, attention is on Guyana. They're reading up about Guyana, they're researching, and they say, you know what, Minister, you have so much natural resources, but why is it Guyana is still not a rich country? Well, I say to them two simple things. One, our sad political past after post-independence, the dictatorship rig elections up to 1992, that hampers a lot. We know that. We know the state of the country when we took over in 1992. We had to rebuild totally. We didn't have money even to pay the loan that was taken under the PNC during that period, much less to develop our infrastructure that was almost non-existent. So besides from that, the other reason is because we have always exported primary products. We have always exported raw materials. The bauxite, we send out the ore. In logging, we send out the logs and other wood products. And I often joke about this one, that we send orange and cherry to Trinidad and buy back the cherry juice and orange juice, which is true. And why? Because of the cost of power generation in Guyana and the reliability of it too. Because many people will tell you that even if you come and set up in Guyana, you still have to get a standby generator because you're not sure when there will be a power failure. So this project will address all these issues. So manufacturing, we're looking to ensure that we grow our manufacturing sector. And what will that do for Guyana? One, it will create numerous opportunities for employment and business opportunities. That's for the provision of raw materials. For example, if we have a juice factory, then the farmers will send their produce there. If we have a factory doing the bamboo flooring, then the loggers would have an opportunity to sell their products there. So they will have increased business opportunities, direct employment. There will be hundreds, maybe thousands as we grow it, of employment being created. The products are being made right here in Guyana, which means that it will obviously be cheaper, because we don't have to import it. We don't have to pay the cost attached to bring it into Guyana. Is made from local raw materials. Is made right here with cheap power. So obviously it will be at a cheaper price and a more competitive price, so that we can be able to compete regionally and internationally as well too. So these are all benefits, and there's so much more that we can talk about, but I know our time is limited. But these are all benefits that will come with that one single project, the gas to energy project. And a lot of people just criticize for the sake of criticizing, and they look at all sorts of flimsy excuses and negatives to speak about the project. But this project will transform Guyana. And we are ensuring, people may speak about the cost, they must speak about, but we are ensuring that we put a bigger pipeline in place as we're coming in. It makes no sense. We are guaranteed 50 million cubic of gas every single day, which is adequate for the power generation of 300 megawatts. So we are comfortable with that for now. But we weren't comfortable in putting an 8-inch pipeline. An 8-inch pipeline could have brought in 50 million cubic. But we said that no, we're not going to do that. We're thinking further ahead. That what will happen when we have more gas to come through that pipeline? Then we got to go and invest and put another pipeline in. So instead of an 8-inch, we're going with a 12-inch pipeline. So it means that there's more room for gas to come in. So as there are more discoveries offshore and there's the availability of more gas, then that will come through the same very pipeline too. So we're putting the infrastructure in place now, and not to wait until we have more gas and then to go and put another infrastructure in place. Also, the NGL plant is part of this project too. It's not only the power plant, but the NGL plant. That means, let me give you an example, cooking gas, for example. Today, I don't know, maybe close to $4,000 for 20-pound cylinder. If you look at other countries, it's just like $1,000. So we will see a significant reduction in that again. So that's why I said this project will reduce the cost of living in the country significantly. Significantly. So it's a project that I think all Guyana should support. All Guyana should welcome. And we are working as a government assiduously to ensure that this project is completed in time. By the end of 2024, we should switch on that power plant, and we should have power coming from that gas energy that very gas energy project. And that is why you notice President Ali, Vice President Jagdeo has been monitoring this project directly, because it is so important for the transformation of our country and the people of our country.
Thank you, Minister. Let's talk a little bit about the gold mining sector. This year, it is expected to be expanding by 12.7%. With your budgetary allocation, what plans do you have to do so?
All right, yes. So let me speak a little on the mining sector, because sometimes I tend to speak too much on the oil and gas sector. The mining sector is important for us, I can tell you that. Before oil and gas, mining was one of our biggest contributor to our GDP. It contributed tremendously to our exports earning. And even 2022, 8.5% of our GDP came from mining activities. Over 50% of our non-oil export was from the mining sector as well too. So mining continues to play an important role in development of our country, and continue to provide employment for our people too. Because, for example, we have a little over 1,000 medium and small scale operations in our interior region. Gold mining this is just gold mining operation, leaving out sand and quarry. And so now if you look at, let's just say each one of those operations employ 10 persons on average. Some might be more, some might be less. That's 10,000 people. That's 10,000 Guyanese being employed directly in the gold mining sector, leaving out the two big gold mining company, Troy Resources and Aurora Gold Mines. Aurora Gold Mines employment right now is over 1,000, all Guyanese, over 1,000 Guyanese employed by AGM. Leaving out the manganese company, where we have, I think it's about 400 or 500 employees there. Bosai in Linden, with an employment of over 700 persons there. So it creates employment for a number of Guyanese across the country too, because these activities are mostly in the hinterland regions. So it creates that employment for hinterland brothers and sisters who are working in the mining sector, who are involved in the mining sector. And leaving out those who are working directly with the sector, there are so much more who work indirectly, the ones who do transportation of fuel, the welders, the mechanic, the person who provide the food. It creates employment for a lot of Guyanese. So that is why we will continue to provide incentives and to work with our miners to ensure we grow that sector. Unfortunately, in the ministry itself, the only commodity that we saw a slight decline was coal. We have had an increase in bauxite, 35%, and that is something that I am very happy of. 35% increase in production in 2022, and that's the two bauxite company. That's Bosai, and that is Forest Bauxite, Jinmin in the Demerara River. And there's already indication that we will see significant increase in bauxite production in 2023, especially at Bosai, where they're installing a new kiln. I was there only a few weeks back to witness and to inspect that. So that kiln will start operation in 2023. So again, we will see an increase in bauxite production in 2023. But I'm particularly pleased because we know that bauxite has been on the decline for a long time. Mm-hmm. And to have an increase of 35% is quite significant. Like the forestry sector, as I mentioned earlier, an increase of 13.4% is significant for the forestry sector.
Especially given the challenges we had last year.
Especially with the COVID, with the weather. The weather plays a major part in logging and mining, and it has severely affected gold mining and logging. because our small operators were severely affected. I personally went into the Mazaruni area, and they had water like 10, 15 feet on land. So it significantly affected our gold mining operation. Nevertheless, we saw a decrease of 2.2% in comparison to 2021. That too was contributed by the lack of production or non-production from Troy Resources, or one of our large-scale mining companies under care and maintenance. They too would have experienced a number of issues, technical issues. The CEO passed away, sadly. They had a number of COVID cases, so they closed their operation during that period. And they're looking now to venture into underground mining. As a matter of fact, the other large-scale gold company is now doing underground mining as well too. So that by itself will speak to an increase in production in gold for 2023. The underground mining, of course, will increase production, and we will continue to work with the small and medium scale miners to ensure that they go back into operation too, because some of them were severely affected by the flooding. And that's why we are continuing to provide incentives. For example, in 2023, Minister Ashley Singh announced during his budget presentation that we will maintain the 0% on fuel. Mm-hmm. And Guyana is probably one of the few countries in the world where there is no tax, absolutely no tax on fuel. A small developing country like Guyana, facing all the challenges that everybody is facing globally, with the economic impact of COVID, with the war in Ukraine, the rising cost of living, the shortage of food supply around the world, the increase in food supply around the world and commodities too, and still we can maintain a 0% on tax. And that is helping the mining sector a lot. It is helping the forestry sector a lot. I can tell you that for sure. That as a result of that, we would have seen an increase in activities gearing towards more production. $5 billion in 2023 budget for hinterland roads. And that is only the Ministry of Public Works. Of course, we do some of the mining roads too, we as in the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission. We have the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs will do some of the community roads in hinterland communities. The Ministry of Local Government will also assist with roads in hinterland communities. So put it together, it's way more than $5 billion that will be spent on hinterland infrastructure. And as you're aware, we are upgrading the Linden to Mabur Road. That will help significantly in mining and logging as well too. And not only that, but we are changing out all the wooden bridges from Linden to Lethem into concrete bridges too. So there will be no downtime. You know, from time to time we know that sometimes the overweight trucks will cause a stress on the wooden bridges and we have collapse. So we are eradicating that issue with the concrete bridges. So all of this we are doing to ensure that we create the environment for people to go back fully into mining, and we can start producing more. Added to that, if I may quickly mention, I know our time is running, in the gold mining sector, we have had, in fact, we do have several large-scale companies doing exploration in Guyana right now. For example, Avalon Gold is OMI. Right, many people said there was no gold there, but already to date we have over 1 million ounces of gold discovered at OMI pit already. We have the Oko deposit, a few million ounces of gold again. We have the Torpora deposit, that's another few million ounces of gold again. We have Eagle Mountain in Region 8. We have Marudi Mountain in Region 9. So there are significant deposit of gold that has already been discovered. And what we're doing now is moving from exploration to production. So with that, the future looks bright. The future looks bright for gold mining in Guyana. And once the gold mining sector do well, it means that our country will do well, our people will do well, jobs will be created, opportunities will be there for the provision of goods and services. And that is why we are committed as a government to continue to grow these traditional sectors.
Well, Minister, thank you. I'd love to talk more about your sector, but unfortunately our time is up. And once again, I'd like to thank you for being here with us in NCN Studio. And thank you, viewers, for watching.
Thank you.